Okie dokie. Now let me teach you about arrays. So far you've seen that if we want to create a variable, so for example int and then number, in here we can only store one number inside. If you want to have another number, you have to create a new variable called number2, for example, equals to something else. Now an array is a data structure, and we'll learn more about data structures later in this course, but arrays allows us to store multiple values inside of one variable. So here you have to specify the data type, and then you put these square brackets, and then you name it. So here I'm going to say numbers equals to new, and then int. And in here you have to specify how big is this array. So how many elements can this array hold? So here, let's say that this can have only 3 integers inside. Now, if I want to add a new integer inside, I can say numbers, and I need to add square brackets. And now I need to specify the position. So arrays indexes, they start from 0. So 0 is the first element. So here I'm going to say that at position 0, I'm going to add the number 1. And let's duplicate this. And here I'm going to say position 1. I want to add, let's say 33. And then position 2 in here, I want to add, let's say 6, for example. So now you can see how we are adding multiple numbers into this array. If I want to print the contents inside of our array, we can say south, and inside I'm going to say arrays dot toString, and then pass numbers inside. So if I put this on a new line so you see things properly, so this function here basically prints out our array, because if we print the array on its own, we'll get a random number. So here, if I run this, have a look, you can see that this is our array. So position 0, it's 1, position 1, we have 33, and position 2, we have number 6. And in total, we have 3 elements inside of our array. So if I remove that and then just print numbers, have a look, we get this gibberish. So if you want to see the contents inside of your array, you just say arrays dot toString, and at the very bottom it does imports this, and we'll talk more about packages later, but it imports this package so that you can invoke this method, and more on methods as well. Now let's say that we want to change, so here I'm going to say 3. So at position 3 we want to add 6. So if I run this, this will fail. So this will throw an exception, and we're going to learn about exceptions later. But if I close this, so here we cannot access this index. So this gives us an index out of bounds because the size of our array is 3. And remember, the index starts from 0. So 0, 1, and the next one is 2, just like that. One thing to bear in mind with arrays is that once we define the size, we cannot make it bigger. So here we can only have 3 numbers, and if you want to add a 4th one, it's impossible. So here, if you want to say numbers and at index 3 equals 2, so this will be the exact same thing. So this will be arrays out of bounds. So we cannot change it. So if I delete this, and what I want to show you now is if you want to find out the length of your array, you can say south and then call the array. So in our case, numbers dot and then length. If I run this, this gives us 3. So this is the size of our array. Now if I close this, and what I want to show you is you see that in here, this is how we initialized the array. So in here, and then we added 3 numbers. But what we could do is basically on this line in here, I'm going to say int, and this is an array. I'm going to say numbers and then 2 equals 2, and then here. So at this point, curly brackets, I can specify numbers. So here 0, comma 5, and then comma 5 maybe, 6, 8, and I can add as many numbers as I want. And in here we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 elements inside. So if I say south numbers 2 dot and then length, run this, you can see that we have 5. So this is the length of our array. So this syntax is a shorthand version of this, because here we have to specify the index. 0 we pass 1, index 1 we pass 33, but here we can just do it in line. Then if you want to change, for example, this value in here, so this is 5. So if you want to change that, for example, to 55, you could just access the index. So numbers 2 and then at index, so that'll be 1. So 0 and then 1 equals to 55. Now what I'm going to do is, just before I change that, I'm going to say south and then arrays dot to string, and I'm going to pass the numbers 2, just like that. And then I'm going to duplicate this so you see the before and after. So just like that, run it, and you can see that, have a look, before 5 was here, but then we change it to 55 and the length is 5. So this is pretty much arrays. Now you see that here we have integers, but this could be any data type that we want. So if you want a double, for example, so if you want to work with decimal numbers, you say double, and now, so nothing changes because these are still decimals. If I run it, you should see that we have 0.0. If you want to store strings, for example, so here maybe you want to store a list of names, so string and then name, or actually names equals 2, and then here you can say Jamila, for example, and here maybe Alex. So now this array in here contains a list of names. So have a look, the data type, curly brackets, the variable equals to, and then depending whether you initialize the array like this or as we did in here. Now this is pretty much an overview about arrays, but later we'll cover data structures in detail and you'll get to work with arrays a lot more. But for now, just remember that arrays allows you to store multiple values inside of one variable. If you have any questions, drop me a message. Otherwise, let's move on.